All right, so this is the first lesson of many that we're going to get into about fractions. So we're going to spend the next few weeks talking about fractions, and some of the stuff you might have had already in second grade and third grade, but it is a good starting off point to kind of talk about some of these things before we dive into them deeper. So the first thing we're going to talk about is this definition of fractions. And so the definition of a fraction is a part of a whole. And so if we think about like a pizza, um, we usually get pizzas delivered as a whole pizza, but then they always cut the pizza up into smaller slices. And usually those slices, 8 to 10 slices, whatever pizza, they are part of that whole fraction. But one of the things that we also need to note in fractions is that the whole or the parts of the fraction are always going to be the same size. That's the only way that fractions work. You may come across a time when you will have some sort of shape that you will use, and you will see that it might be cut into sections. Now, this one, sorry about the horrible drawing, this one would not be a fraction simply because it is not cut in half. It is cut in two sections that are not equal. And so you're going to see that this will not be a fraction. What we're looking for in those fractions is we're looking for things that are equal. So if we look at these different shapes here, they're all of equal size, okay? The second part that we look at in fractions has to do with there could be fractions where we're getting a pizza or a cake, and that's what I prefer to use is a rectangle cake. A lot of the fractions you've seen were drawn in circles. Those are really hard to separate into equal parts, and so I always like to use rectangles or squares, and so that's what we're going to be using as we work through this lesson. The other way that you're going to see fractions is on this number line. And so you're going to see this number line. This is a number line that separates the numbers between 1 and 2. And you are going to divide those into fractional sections that are equal. So if you notice the distance between 1 and 1/2 and 1 and 1/2 to 2 are going to be the same distance. The same way we divide this section into 4 sections. So each of these sections is the same section size. So you're going to see fractions in two different ways. Parts of a whole on both of them, but one is just one whole piece, or you may see fractions on a number line. Another way that you're going to see fractions is you may see, say for instance, we're working with Skittles, and we have these red Skittles here that we're going to do. So here's red Skittle 1, here's red Skittle 2, red Skittle 3, red Skittle 4, and then all of a sudden we have a blue Skittle within our red Skittles. And so we can look at parts of a whole. The whole being all of the Skittles, okay? So we think about that as a whole, sorry. And then we think about how many Skittles are of one kind. So we could say we have 1 out of the 5 Skittles is blue. And so that's another way that we can look at fractions. So you're going to see fractions in 3 different ways. And so this is what we're going to be focusing on through our work. So as we progress further, there are different types of fractions that we're going to run into. And you've got just your regular fraction, right? So this is your 1/2. And so this is going to be, we're just going to call this your regular fraction, okay? And you're going to run into other types of fractions, okay? So if we order, say we order 3 pizzas, we're going to call that, we eat just a half a pizza. So what we have left is we have 2 and a half pizzas, right? And so this type of fraction, this fraction is called a mixed number. And it's a mixed number because it has a whole number and a fraction put together. And then the other type of fraction you are going to come along is you're going to come along to see something like this fraction of 5/2, or we could call this 5/2. And so we're going to look at this fraction as well. And this fraction is called an improper fraction. And the reason we call that improper fraction is because the top number, called the numerator, is larger than the bottom number. And so that's an improper fraction. So we're going to kind of learn about these different types of fractions as we go through the process. The next thing I want to introduce you to is the different parts of a fraction, okay? And so if we talk about fractions, we talk about, let's use that 1/2 again, excuse me. Oops. So if we got this 1/2, now I am so sorry about my drawing. I'm doing the best I can with my fingers here. All right, so we have these two types of fractions. So the top number is going to be called the numerator. The numerator, okay? And that's the number that goes on top. The bottom number we're going to call the denominator. Ooh, sorry. The bottom number we call the denominator, okay? And that's the two different parts of the fraction. So you're going to pause this video and add these words and these pictures to your notebook. So the things that you need to have are, you're going to have the first slide with the fraction. So I want you to draw your best at drawing a part of a whole so that you can define the fraction. The next thing you're going to do is write down your types of fractions. So you have your regular fraction, the mixed number, and an improper fraction. You're going to pause the video and go through that and include those in your notes. And then the third thing you're going to do is draw this fraction and identify the numerator and the denominator. These words are going to help us communicate mathematically of what's going on. And so we're going to try to get in the habit of using these words as we go through the process. The next thing we're going to talk about is how to create these fractions. And I have this grid paper, and you have access to the visual online fraction creators as well as Whiteboard FI that I've explained in the previous videos on how to create these fractions. And so this one is kind of nice. I like to use this because then we can draw on here the things that we want to do. So say, for instance, I have this shape here that we are going to work on. We're just going to focus on this shape. And within this shape, we have 5 by 5, right? And so we know that the total area of this shape is 25, okay? And that's the number we're going to work with. So there's 25 little squares inside of this shape. So if we wanted to create a fraction, we could, in essence, go through and we're going to just color in. Let's color in 5 of these. So we're going to color in 5 of these total squares. And so what we're going to have is we're going to have a fraction that is 5/25. So 5 parts to the whole. Okay, so the numerator shows how many parts are colored in. The denominator shows how many total parts in our fraction. And so we can create fractions this way. And this is kind of primarily what we're going to be focused on for the first few weeks of our fractions until we get really good at this. So you can work with that and color in those fractions. So I want you to show me in your notebook, I want you to pause this video and I want you to create a fraction. Whatever fraction, I want you to be able to talk about that fraction when we meet together. Okay? All right. So when we do this, we can do this a lot of different ways. We can we can create fractions of parts. So say, for instance, I want to take another fraction, and this time I'm going to just draw a rectangle. Okay, I'm going to do the best I can here. And I'm going to take this rectangle, and I'm going to cut it into, oh my goodness, 4 equal pieces. And so we can kind of go through and see that we have our rectangle, and we have it cut into 4 different pieces. Now, say for instance, I wanted to cut this fraction in half. So I want to show 1/2. So I'm looking for 1/2. Okay. Well, the simple thing would be to just, let's say, color in. Oops. Sorry. Let me go to highlighter. Color in 2 parts, right? So here's my half fraction. So we know that this is colored in and this is my half. So half of the shape is cut up. Another way we can look at this is if we just draw a smaller rectangle or a square and we cut this in half. There is our half fraction. So we've got a half fraction over on this side and the other half is not filled in. So this is the same thing. So we're basically taking, and you can also do it with like a piece of paper. So you take a piece of paper and or Post-it note in the case that I'm using it, and we're just going to make a half a fraction. We can just fold it in half, and then what we've created is a half a fraction, so or a half. So this is half here, and this is half here. Part of a whole and half. We want to cut it into fourths. We can go ahead and fold it twice equally. Remember, a fraction has to have equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can see that we've cut this into fourths. We can go even further, and we can take this half, and we can go ahead and divide it into 8 sections. So once I fold it again, so I've got 3 folds, I've got my fold in half, I've got my fold in half, and then I create a fraction with 8 equal sections. So if I were to color in 3 of these sections, okay, coloring in 3 of the sections, and then so I have a fraction of 3 parts colored in, 8 parts total, so I create a fraction of 3/8. So this is your introduction lesson into fractions, and you can pause the video, you can go back and play the video again, whatever you need to do. This is the stuff that's going to help you work with your math. So you're going to continue on, and you are going to work through, this is 342, 343, 344, and 345. And you're going to work through those. Once you finish those pages, you can jump on Khan Academy. And then after you do that, you can jump on Sundog. Don't forget, if you want to set a timer or a reminder, we'll be back together at 8:50 to discuss what you've done. And this is the way that we're going to do things. And so I'm hoping you'll give me some feedback. Let me know what you need as we go through the process. I look forward to seeing you at 8:50. Don't forget to work through. And once again, if you have questions or you don't understand what you're doing, just skip it, move to the next item so that you're not slowing down. Okay. Work through the process, and then I will see everyone back here at 8:50 on our Zoom, and we'll go through the work. Thank you.